In the last 10 to 20 years, prices have also risen moderately. If there is too much liquidity in the market, there is a risk that prices will soar. However, the rise in prices was able to be controlled thanks to the free movement of goods, labor, and services. At that time, the efficiency of production factors such as capital, labor, and raw materials was maximized, and the market for consuming them was also opened, maximizing economic utility. According to the International Monetary Fund, the annual global inflation rate did not exceed 5.1% from 2000 to 2022, except for 6.3% during the 2008 financial crisis. However, the IMF predicted that the inflation rate would soar to 8.8% this year. Here, the IMF showed that the war for supremacy between the US and China would solidify the rises in prices. This is because the global supply chain is reorganized, centering on the two countries, and the efficiency of globalization is no longer the same as before. But markets are beginning to emerge from the pessimism that a global economy is inevitably in a recession. Replacing the spot has raised expectations that the Goldilocks state of the economy can become a reality. Goldilocks refers to a moderate state, neither hot nor cold. In December of last year, the U.S. inflation rate slowed to 6.5%. In the midst of this, prospects are beginning to emerge that the Federal Reserve System will be able to catch the two levels of the economy and inflation without driving the best rate higher and longer. In addition, the expectation that China's reopening will also act as a positive factor for the global economy is strengthened. The U.S. Consumer Price Index for December, released by the U.S. Department of Labor on January 12 local time, rose 6.5% year-on-year and fell 0.1% month-on-month. It is the first time since May 2020 that the CPI fell from a month ago when the spread of COVID-19 peaked. Employment remains unwavering even in the face of falling prices. According to the latest December employment report, the number of new hires still exceeded 200,000, while the rate of wage growth fell short of market expectations, easing concerns about price stimulation. Slowing inflation and a strong job market were supporting the Goldilocks scenario. Expectations are growing that the Chinese economy will rebound thanks to the with Corona transition, and Europe is also in an atmosphere of avoiding the energy crisis. As expectations for soft landing in the global economy grow, stock markets in major economic sectors also on the rise in the new year. As the U.S. inflation rate slowed, there was an optimistic prospect that the U.S. economy could reach Goldilocks, which means an ideal economic situation as well as a soft landing. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, the consumer price index in December of last year rose 6.5% from the same month last year, recording the smallest increase in 14 months since October 2021. As inflation slows, expectations are raised that the standard interest rate will be raised by 0.25% in February, and there are even predictions of a soft landing for the economy and the interest rate cut at the end of this year. In the meantime, we went through an era of very low interest rates, but it didn't seem to be like this anymore, with the interest rates and inflation rising at the same time. It was difficult to predict that an economic recession would not occur. The loose era in which abundant liquidity following low interest rates led investment and consumption, and the world was able to realize a moderate inflation rate as a single supply chain seemed difficult to maintain any longer. The political and geopolitical risks of a global supply chain reorganization that began with the technology competition between the US and China and the Russian invasion of Ukraine ended the Goldilocks period of low interest rates and low prices. These are new normals hit the major economy, bolstering the argument for preparing for a coming global recession. At the heart of this controversy was the end of the era of globalization and the prominence of localization. However, unless the regionalization of the world changes, the era of low interest rates and low prices seems difficult. The anti-globalization movement is one of the many challenges that lie ahead of us. If we go back to the Cold War era, when both trade and communication were lacking, all this progress made so far would likely be in vain.